You are listening to the Nightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks so much for listening. Coming up, our guest this week, Will Turner of Bulls 24/7. We'll talk about USF making it to the Super Regionals in baseball. They, along with East Carolina, were representing the American in the NCAA Baseball Championships. Will standing by in the virtual green room and will join us in just a few moments. But first, we have some breaking news out of college football today. It looks like a 12-team model has been proposed by the College Football Playoff Working Group that would expand the field from 4 to 12 teams. That 12-team model would invite the 6 top conference champions and 6 at-large teams into the field, and there'd be no limit on the number of selections from a conference, and no conference would receive an automatic bid. In this format, the top 4 conference champions would get byes in the first round, and the other 8 teams would compete in first-round games on the campuses of the teams ranked numbers 5 through 8, and they would take place in the 2 weeks following the conference championship weekend. The quarterfinals will be played at bowl sites, taking place on January 1st or 2nd, depending on which day New Year's Day falls. And it's not been yet determined when the semis and the national championship would be played, but the working group suggests semifinals not be played as a doubleheader like it is presently set up. So what this means is good news for the American and also the other G5 conferences, as there would be a legitimate path to the playoff. And under this particular format, UCF would have made it in 2017 and 2018, and Cincinnati would have been in last year. So we'll have to wait and see if this working group's recommendation will be approved. It will be discussed and vetted next week at the previously scheduled CFP Management Committee meeting June 17th and 18th. That committee made up of 10 FBS commissioners and Notre Dame Athletic Director Jack Swarbrick. And again, if it approved, it would be forwarded on to the CFP Board of Managers, which are holding a meeting on June 22nd. That group comprised of presidents and chancellors representing the 10 FBS conferences, along with Notre Dame President Reverend John I. Jenkins. So, a 12-team playoff could be on the horizon, and a path into the playoffs for the American and other G5 conferences would actually exist under this new format. Coming up next, we'll talk baseball, South Florida style. Will Turner of Bulls 24/7 will join us to talk about the Bulls making the Super Regionals. That conversation is next when the AAC Report continues right after this.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chadbar Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chadbar Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com.
All right, my pleasure to welcome back to the AAC Report Will Turner from Bulls247.com as we talk about the South Florida Bulls making their way through the NCAA baseball tournament. Will, thanks for being back with us.
Yeah, I appreciate you always having me, Jeff.
Well, let's talk about what South Florida's doing. They have made it to the Super Regional. Quite a great end of the season as they win the conference tournament over rival UCF. And then they actually go in and win the Gainesville Regional to get to the Supers. Give me your thoughts on all that's occurred.
Yeah, so it's been a pretty interesting, especially dating back pretty much to May 21st. It's been, you look at where USF stood at the end of the season. Really, they were 23-26 heading into the final game of the season. They took 2 out of 4 from East Carolina, who was the 10th ranked team in the country at the time. They won 7-0 and then won 8-2, and they really carried that momentum from the last 2 games of the East Carolina series into the American Athletic Conference tournament. Beat Wichita State, beat Tulane, which were both higher-ranked teams, or higher-seeded teams. Beat UCF as well in the conference tournament game. And then you just kind of look at everything they've done since, and in the regionals, beat a UF team that was pretty highly touted at the beginning of the year. Had some had some preseason, a lot of preseason hype behind it. Beat a Miami team that's consistently been good the last couple of years, and it's that's what baseball is all about, right? Is getting hot at the right time, and that's exactly what they've done in this last couple 2 to 3 weeks, dating back to the final 2 games in that East Carolina series to wrap up the regular season.
Yeah, and I guess one of those things too, the Gators going 2-0 in their own regional hosting. You got to love to see that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of people were a lot of Florida fans are calling it the worst showing in Florida baseball history. You lose 5-3 to USF in the first game, and then South Alabama comes into your own house, brand new ballpark, multi-million-dollar ballpark, and South Alabama wins like 19-1. So if you're a Florida fan, it's not a great time baseball-wise, but for USF, you really just took advantage of a great situation.
Yeah.
You just winning 5-3 over Florida was a big step for the program in itself, because that was the first NCAA tournament win over the Gators since 1982, I believe. So that's a big step for the program in itself, right? Florida's always been a roadblock that the Bulls haven't been able to get over in recent years. They didn't play in this season before that regional, so to get that win was really, really big. And then the momentum just kind of kept going on. They beat Miami, like I mentioned, in 2 games over South Alabama, and next thing you know, they're on their way to Austin.
Yeah, that is quite an accomplishment. And what do you think has fueled this run that they're on? What is the big catalyst to what's happening?
Just think the fact that a lot of people at the beginning of the year didn't think they'd do anything. They were picked to finish last in the American Athletic Conference. I mean, the year before, they were 6-11. And then in 2019, they missed the tournament. They were 26-27 and missed the AAC tournament, and didn't even get a chance to compete in that. So I think, you go through this season. Obviously, this is your first full season after not being able to play last year. You've got a lot of guys that are hungry, a lot of new life, because there's a lot of freshmen on this roster. There's only a handful of seniors, and you just look at. I think the big thing is just primarily that they've been written off by a lot of people, and I think that's kind of fueled them throughout the last part of this season. A 4 seed getting to a super regional is pretty hard to come by, and I think USF continues to just have the mentality of they're not done yet, and I think that's kind of the biggest thing that's pushed them. Yeah,
especially when everybody's looking at the regional they're in, Florida getting to host and highly touted. Miami's always got the credibility, and South Alabama had a heck of a season, and they played very well in that regional as well. So to climb through that, certainly a big accomplishment. So now The Super Regional awaits. What do you think is going to happen as far as that goes?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I mean, Texas is the number 2 seed in this tournament for a reason. The Longhorns have been fantastic all season long. They've done a great job of taking care of business in their home park. They're 30-5 inside the friendly confines of Austin, and you look at their regional stuff. They beat Southern 11-0. They beat Arizona State 10-3, and they beat Fairfield 12-2. They've ran through their regional. Scored at least 10 runs in all 3 games, and didn't allow more than 3. So that's pretty big in itself. These guys can hit. The big thing for me that I look at is that series that they had against Texas Tech towards the end of the season. They took only 1 game out of that series and won 11-3 on the Sunday game and lost on Friday and Saturday. Well, USF also played Texas Tech. They dropped all 3 games to the Red Raiders. That was probably about late March. They lost 16-6, 8-0, and 7-4 in Lubbock. But I look at that series, and I don't know if there's too much that I can draw from that. Considering that they were a month and a half apart. But Texas did struggle with that Texas Tech team, and USF did as well. You look at kind of the rest of the way, and look at the way they have been playing. They didn't score as many runs in that Big 12 championship as they did in their regional, but once they got to the regional, they really, really turned it on. So it's going to be tough, especially in that ballpark. I mean, you don't win 30 games in your own ballpark by chance. So it'll be tough. It'll be a tough crowd. It'll be a huge crowd, I think, bigger than what any USF baseball player's seen probably in their college careers, and it should be a good test to kind of see if the luck will continue if they get to Omaha.
Yeah, and and it's also very good for the conference. East Carolina, them being in the Super Regional really is not much of a surprise to anybody, and they are the gold standard of the conference in baseball. And South Florida now making it certainly bolsters the conference. And again, baseball in the American is very tough. Tulane's had a good season. Wichita State. UCF had their moments, so the top half of the conference in baseball was very, very solid in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that was the big thing, when you look at the backstretch of the season and you look at, especially that conference tournament run. I mean, you had to play Tulane 3 times. You lost to them once if you're USF in 8 innings, but you beat them 5-0 and 7-1, which are some pretty good wins. And then Wichita State was the number 3 ranked team in that tournament. You beat them 7-2, and then UCF has showed that they can be a pretty solid ball club as well. A team that, if I remember correctly, was higher ranked than USF in that tournament, because USF was the 6th seed, and I think UCF was the 5.
Yes, they were the 5. Yes.
Yeah. So they, you beat some tough clubs. You didn't get to play East Carolina since they lost to UCF. I would have liked to see USF and East Carolina again at some point in that tournament. Never happened. I think that would have been a better barometer potentially. But regardless, you won your tournament. That's a pretty darn good accomplishment. But yeah, no, the top half of the American has been great. Tulane has continued a tradition of excellence with their baseball program. Wichita State is on the rebound, and even UCF, like I said, it has done a great job. They've got some local talent from the Bay Area. The Plant City lefty Billy McKay stands out to me that I remember watching back in high school. So yeah, UCF has done well in recruiting, and as has Tulane, Wichita State, and East Carolina. And it was tough. It definitely wasn't expected for them to kind of run the table like they did, but just a perfect storm. Yeah,
and a lot can be said for momentum and getting hot. That's for sure. Hey, real quick, just a quick thought. If you have a quick capsule thought on the softball team, they got to the regional final and lost to the Gators. Can you give me just a quick synopsis of their season?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you say quick, I might give you a half hour. I love softball, so I can give you a ton. Yeah, 31-19 on the year, 16-7 in the conference. They did lose in the second round of the conference tournament to UCF. and then made it to the regional final in their region. They were in the Gainesville Regional, just like the baseball team was. They lost to Florida 1-0, and they lost to Florida 8-0. The big thing that I take away from this softball season, being a softball guy, is USF they're in a weird place. I think the gap between USF and UCF is getting notable. It's certainly around the Bay Area. There's a lot of talk around that from the coaches that I talk to. The coaches, travel high school. All the coaches that I've talked to are starting to kind of see that gap between UCF and USF, and they're starting to see how UCF is recruiting, and they really like what UCF is putting together in recruiting. And so when I look at USF and UCF and UCF together, on the same plane, because they are very similar kind of programs right now. I look at what UCF did, and they beat Florida, they beat Arizona, and USF got run-rolled both times by Arizona when they came to town. They got run-rolled by Florida. They couldn't beat Florida in 5 tries. So still a good season. They just got to get more behind Georgina Corrick. She was fantastic this year, as she has been the last couple of years. The All-American that had a .98 ERA and a .75 WHIP and 228 innings pitched. She's phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, phenomenal. But you've got to get something. You've got to get better pitching behind her. And the next option is Vivian Pond, who had a 4.54 ERA in 19 appearances, which in a conference like the American, which is also getting better in softball, isn't going to cut it. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. I think they're at a crossroads right now and how they recruit. I do like the class that's coming in for USF softball. There's a couple of local talents. Kylie Vaughn from Wharton, that should be pretty good. I think Lydia Castro from Newsom could be a day one starter right out of the gate at catcher. And Emma Humplick from, I want to say, Orangewood High School out in Texas. She's going to be phenomenal early on. So I think there's some good pieces that are coming in with USF softball in this next year. But yeah, they're at a crossroads, and I think 2022 is going to be an important year to kind of see where things set up down the road.
Yeah, and Georgina Corrick was so good. I think I lost count of the number of times she was the pitcher of the week, and I think she was player of the week a couple times too.
Yeah, she was. She's been phenomenal. She's getting up to the point to where she is honestly one of the best ever to come through the University of South Florida. She was just named the female USF Student Athlete of the Year today, actually. And she just a great rise ball pitcher that'll it kind of amazes me just how she's able to continue to do what she does. I mean, she basically kept Florida off the board for 6 innings until they cracked her armor late in that one. And it's getting to the point where at USF where it's kind of Georgina Corrick and everybody else. There's the divide's probably not the best word, but there's a gap between her and kind of the rest of the team. Don't get me wrong, there's some good players. I mean, Anna Marie Bruni was fantastic again with a .362 average and 38 stolen bases, but you got to get more production out of your lineup. USF was their offense was stagnant at times, and a lot of times it was, all right, let's just ride Georgina's right arm and kind of see where she goes and see where she takes us. And if she can no-hit everybody, then we can score 1 or 2 runs and we'll win the softball game. So again, I think Ken Erickson is a legendary coach. I mean, there's no denying what he's done, and USF is still in great hands with him. Without a doubt. And like I said, I think there are some good pieces in this class that could contribute early, and hopefully the rest of the pitching staff comes around and kind of give Georgina some support next year.
All right, and one last quick question, because it's never too early or too late to ask a football question. Jeff Scott, what was your thoughts on Season 1, and what do you think is going to happen in Season 2?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Jeff Scott and USF right now is they've got to get a win over an FBS opponent, right? Their only win last year was against the Citadel, and they had their opportunities. They lost to Temple by 2 points. They lost to Memphis by 1, and they led both games pretty deep in. So a lot of USF fans talk about how encouraging it was to see the Bulls put up the amount of offense that they did against UCF, and in that final game, 650 yards of offense is nothing to sneeze about. But if you look at the personnel, it's going to be a lot different, right? Jordan McLeod is now at Arizona. Devontrez Dukes will not be back. Randall St. Felix will not be back. A lot of transfers out of the program. And I remember a quote from Charlie Strong right after they lost to Marshall. He said the program needed a good washing. And I think what Jeff Scott is doing right now with this team and kind of cycling out the talent that Charlie recruited, and now that Jeff Scott is recruiting and bringing in via the transfer portal, I think this is the washing, for lack of a better term, that USF never got with Charlie, but they'll get with Jeff Scott. That'll get them back on track. Because there's some good transfers that came in. You've got, especially in secondary, with Christian Williams from was at Miami, Will Jones from Kansas State, Matthew Hill from Auburn. They just got Tamarcus Simpson from Eastern Michigan, who was a Sickles alum, a Tampa guy. And then, you bring in Jared Williams from Miami. Cade Fortin looks like it's kind of his job to lose at the starting quarterback position, but spun the ball well in the spring game. You get all of your running backs back except for Johnny Ford. You get Bryce Miller back. You get Xavier Weaver back. You get, you pretty much your entire linebacking core back with Antonio Greer and Dwayne Boyles. Christopher Townsend's back. The names that are back are staggering, especially on the defensive side. And I like what they have returning. You've just got to get more production within games and got to close out those late games. And first-year head coach, there's definitely time and ways to improve. And I think you'll see that hopefully in 2022. I think the ceiling that I'm looking at is probably 5-6 games season. You look at their out of conference schedule is tough. They go play at North Carolina State. They welcome Florida. They welcome Florida A&M, and then they go out to BYU. That's a tough 4 games. You would imagine you'd win the Florida A&M game, but NC State is no slouch, and Florida is Florida, and BYU showed what they could do last year. Although they do have to replace Zach Wilson, so. We'll see what happens. I think it should definitely be an improvement upon last season, and they look like their recruiting is becoming more Bay Area focused as these guys are able to see in-person recruits. With the dead period being lifted, they just offered a couple of Bay Area guys this week. They've had a bunch on campus in the last week, so I think overall the program is trending in the right direction. The on-field product just has to continue to do that as well.
All right, Will Turner, Bulls247.com. We appreciate you letting us interrupt your Starbucks visit to give us the lowdown on South Florida baseball and the whatnot. And thanks for the extra, and we do appreciate it.
Absolutely. I always appreciate you having me on, Jeff.
And we're back with some final news and notes right after this.
If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Nightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have Everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company, and they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats, Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
Some final news and notes now from around the American as we discussed baseball. Since we were last with you, I should say, softball ended for the 3 American teams that made it into the NCAAs, and it was UCF, Wichita State, and South Florida, each making it to the final of their region, but needing 2 wins to get into the Super Regionals. None of the teams were able to get a single victory and therefore were defeated. Florida defeated South Florida to take them out. UCF was defeated by Florida State, and Wichita State was beaten by Oklahoma. So both those American teams fell to the eventual participants for the national championship, which Oklahoma won this afternoon over Florida State in Game 3 of the Champ Series. So there you go. And athletes from across the AAC are competing in the 2021 NCAA Outdoor Track and Field Championships now through the 12th at Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon. Coverage will be live on ESPN3, also on ESPNU on the 10th, ESPN2 on the 11th, and ESPN 2 on June 12th on ESPNU. So on the ESPN Family Network, you'll be able to check that out. A total of 52 athletes representing the American are scheduled to compete, a conference record for a single season. Houston leads all American members with 22 entrants, 11 women and 11 men. And they're eligible to take part in individual and relay events. South Florida has 9 women's athletes and 2 men athletes for a total of 11. SMU has 6 women in the field. Cincinnati has 2 women and 2 men who qualified for the meet. UCF has a pair of women. Wichita State, a pair of men. East Carolina, 1 woman and 1 man due to compete. And Tulsa with 1 man. And that 1 man, by the way, is the national champion in the 10,000 meter. That's right. Tulsa's Patrick Dever claimed the championship in the 10,000 meter run on the opening day. So he established a meet record in the men's 10K with a time of 27:41.87, shattering the previous national championship mark set way back in 1979. So there you have that situation there. So congratulations to Patrick Dever. Memphis also has 1 woman, and Temple, a female, in the single athlete in the field, again, of the 52 athletes representing the American at the NCAA Outdoor Track and Field Championships. And that's going to do it for this week's show. As always, please follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88. And you can follow the Nightline Sports Network at UCF_Nightline. This has been the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks so much for listening.